Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another interview on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course with me is Milly,
Hi.
and we have Sophie,
Hey.
we have Dan,
Hi.
and the special guest who will be interviewing today is Maxwell Adams. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thanks
So
for having me.
it is absolutely incredible to have you here today. I mean, there is no shadow of a doubt in my mind that people watching this will know you from so many incredible things such as Billy and Mandy, but I suppose as well we're also here to talk about Happy Halloween Scooby Doo as well. So there's so many things that we're excited to talk about, to talk to you about today. But I'd like to build up a little timeline, starting from the start, of course, and to that end, I'll ask what inspired you or what influenced you to go into the animation industry?
It was a lot of different things. I mean, I loved Saturday morning cartoons, pretty much all of them as a kid. Scooby was very special to me in that I was also terrified of everything. So I think just having this cartoon that was sort of about, these frightened characters, dealing with their fear and finding out most of the time that these things aren't real. I think that was helpful for me. But yeah, that even the stuff that I was afraid of, the horror movies, eventually that got folded in, and I love that stuff now. So yeah, it was sort of just a potpourri of my childhood, I guess.
That was brilliant. I mean, certainly I think like you were saying, there's a character in Scooby Doo that at least everybody can resonate with one of them. That's so good about the gang. And I
Right.
guess kind of moving on from that, was there a certain, like you say, you always loved Scooby, was there a certain time where you remember thinking, I love it so much that this is the industry I want to get into?
Yeah, I think I got lucky in that I was in high school in the very early 90s, and there was sort of this animation revival going on. So I think on top of just already loving cartoons, just seeing that theoretically you could just be a person who comes out with an idea and then has it made into something that was inspirational. So yeah, that certainly that time period and that all ended up metastasizing into Billy and Mandy, and certainly Scooby worked his way in there. So
Yeah, and you've mentioned obviously the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. Where did the idea come from, and what led to you pitching the show?
again, that was just sort of all these different influences in my childhood kind of combined. So I always loved drawing skeletons and spooky stuff, and when it finally came around to pitching the show for Billy and Mandy, I'd already made a college film that had at least a version of a Billy and a Mandy, and it was just sort of, I always felt like somebody was missing, and I toyed around with the devil a little bit as a character, and then I was like, they already have Cow and Chicken and Powerpuff Girls, and they really don't like the devil on either one of those shows, so I'm not going to try that again. I'm going to try the Grim Reaper, and somehow that worked out. I don't know how. I don't know that it's really any more acceptable to American censors, but somehow it got by.
Honestly, such an iconic show. Were there any early concepts for Billy and Mandy that ended up being changed?
Yeah, it did develop over time. My college film, Billy is still dumb, but he's a much more innocent, less obnoxious dumb, and Mandy is just almost sort of a smiling maniac. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to see it, but their personalities just sort of developed and solidified along with the show when I started thinking about that.
That is incredible, and it's really cool to know that when you think about, Billy and Mandy, not only, you created the show, but also other things as well, such as writing some of the episodes and also working on the storyboards. Was there any particular side to working on Billy and Mandy that you particularly enjoyed?
I think I eventually learned to love it all. Like I've always loved writing and I've always loved drawing, and to have a job where that I got to do that was incredible. I was always a little bit cagier about the management parts, just because I don't really like confrontation, and it took a long time to kind of learn how to talk to people. I guess to critique people. I guess it's just not something that I feel good doing, but it has to be done.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose to kind of add on to that question a bit, were there any either a particular episode or perhaps a handful of episodes that now looking back at it you reflect on and you thought that they were particularly good or that you're particularly proud of having worked on?
It's a little bit of a mixed bag. Like not having watched it, Billy and Mandy, for a long time, and then going back a couple of years ago and watching some, like it's funnier than I remember. Like it, I think to some degree it holds up. There's definitely things that I did that I wouldn't do now, and lessons to be learned. But I was actually surprised, I think, at how much I didn't hate it.
Well, it certainly was, much loved. And I guess was there a time when you realized just how much it was going to resonate with the audience, how much they were going to enjoy it, either kind of before it aired or when, initially went on air? Just did you ever expect the reception it received?
No, I think that kind of slowly grew on me. The first couple seasons were just this desperate battle for survival, where I felt like we were going to be canceled at any moment. And in fact, we did get canceled, I think, 3 times before it was all said and done. So we would just, we would get these pickups, like 6 episodes, and then the clock would just kind of run out and I'd lose the whole crew. And I'd be like, well, I guess it's over. And then they'd be like, hey, we're making 12 more. And then we make 12 more and everybody eventually fade away. And I'd be like, I guess it's over. So yeah, I think by the time we hit, I guess what Cartoon Network calls the 3rd season onward or 4th season onward, the crew was pretty tight. People stayed on, and I think we were all feeling more confident at that point. And I think it shows in the episodes themselves.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, it is still so loved. I know there's lots of people out there that's wanting to see more episodes or more merch as well. I know there's been a lot of people kind of saying they'd love to see like Funko Pops and things like that. Do you know if that's something that would ever be a possibility?
I don't know. I'm sort of surprised there haven't been Funko Pops, but there still isn't really a DVD set or anything either. So it's just sort of missed opportunities on Cartoon Network's part, I guess. Maybe someday.
We can certainly hope for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, a particular nostalgic episode of Billy and Mandy was Jacked Up Halloween. Just in your opinion, what are some of the key features of a good Halloween special?
I mean, I love Halloween, so I think there's, sort of the keystones of Halloween, like your jack-o'-lanterns and witches and ghosts, especially sheep ghosts, and just the classic stuff. I always like to see a little bit of that in there, but I also like surprises. So that's where I think it gets difficult, is especially if you're working on a show like Billy and Mandy or Scooby Doo, where any given episode is potentially a Halloween episode, then like how do you differentiate it? I think that's kind of why I skew toward the classic stuff.
Yeah, well, obviously on the topic of Halloween, you directed, produced, and wrote 2020's Happy Halloween Scooby Doo. But prior to this, how familiar were you with the Scooby franchise?
Again, like I said, I loved it growing up. I was around for there was a run of Scooby direct-to-videos directed by Paul McAvoy, who used to be a storyboard artist in Billy and Mandy, and we were at Warner Brothers at the same time, so I kind of got a close look at those ones. Other than that, I hadn't watched a lot of the DTV stuff until they asked me to do the 2 Scoobies I did. So that was just sort of a weekend of binge watching, because both of those Scoobies were such, like, it was triage. Like I didn't really know when I took the job, but both Happy Halloween and the Sword and the Scoob both had like big problems and chunks cut out of their schedule. So they were both. I like I said, I love Scooby, but I feel like and yeah, I'm even pretty proud of what we did with Happy Halloween. But I also feel like I haven't really gotten my say with Scooby yet. So sometimes it's frustrating.
I know we touched a bit about this before, but was there a member of the Scooby Gang that you were most excited to write for?
Yeah, I found Fred and Daphne to be a little bit more challenging, and sometimes I like challenges. So I was looking forward to kind of figuring them out a little bit more. And I ended up stealing a lot of the Daphne from the Be Cool Scooby Doo. They just have the very sort of out there weird Daphne, and I like her. She makes sense to me.
Definitely got the Be Cool Daphne in there. How did your work on Happy Halloween Scooby Doo come about?
I was working at Warner Brothers doing some developments, and one of the executives said, "Hey, do you want to do Scooby Doo Halloween special?" And I was like, "Well, tell me more." And they said, "It's going to be the 50th anniversary of Scooby Doo, and we want to do this Halloween special, and it's going to be the first Halloween DTV ever." And I was like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah, you want to do it?" And I was like, "Well, I love Scooby Doo, so sure." And of course, it wasn't the first Halloween DTV ever, but that's fine. We also didn't make the 50th anniversary date. So a lot of the visual stuff I wanted to do kind of as a throwback to original Scooby, and there's still a lot of that in there, but we didn't go quite as crazy with it as I'd planned.
See, that's really interesting to hear that schedule kind of went a bit out there. That's really, really interesting to hear about. And another thing as well that I noticed in terms of like, visual cues back to things and potential references, for instance, the Grim Reaper as one of the floats, and also the pumpkin monsters were all very reminiscent of both Grim himself, but also the pumpkin monsters from that Halloween episode of Billy and Mandy. Were those intentional choices, or was it just coincidence?
The float was just sort of a silly Easter egg. The pumpkins, that was just sort of convergent evolution. Like I feel like I kind of ended up where I did with the Billy and Mandy special for similar reasons, where I was looking for something iconically Halloween that could be a monster, and I think the idea that it could be something, a drone or a robot instead of something magical, I was like, it's a different solution to the same problem, so that's cool in its own way.
Absolutely. It definitely was really cool to see. And some of the things as well, there was a bit of a curiosity with Happy Halloween, where for all it's a really cool special that stands on its own and everything like that. Obviously, as we kind of alluded to, it was part of an ongoing trilogy involving the Curse of the 13th Ghost and obviously Return to Zombie Island, where the big reveal where the sheriff was going to reveal his dastardly plan. Was this, did this kind of bring any ups and downs as far as writing the movie was concerned?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I didn't know this was part of a trilogy until I was almost done. Like I said, this whole thing was very rushed. So they were like, "Yeah, you've got basically 2 weeks to write a script for this, 75-minute mini movie." So I was like, "All right," and I buckled down and I did it. And toward the end, like I said, I was watching through the recent direct-to-video movies, and I finally got to. I don't know if it was Return to Zombie Island, but I was like, "So this sheriff, like you said that they were originally going to carry the sheriff over," and they were like, yeah, that's like the one thing that has to carry over is the sheriff." And I'm like, "Okay," but I didn't know that it was part of like a solid trilogy. So that's why there's things that don't really tie together. Just because by the time I found out what was going on, it was sort of too late. Yeah, but hopefully, somebody got something out of that. Poor sheriff.
No, it was absolutely brilliant. And I guess kind of a bit more of the curiosities that we have to kind of ask about is a little bit more kind of towards behind the scenes as well, because certainly over the last few years there's been so many changes in animation where people are now recording from home studios and all that kind of thing. Did the cast get to interact much? Were you ever all kind of in a recording studio together or get to see each other at all, or was it very much kind of in the time of people working from their home studios and that sort of thing?
It was very much home studio. We recorded everybody separately, and this was really early days of COVID, actually. So everybody was still kind of figuring it out, and you'd have people that would, get on and say hello, and then you wouldn't hear them for 20 minutes, and there'd just be a lot of clattering noises, and somebody'd have to drive over to somebody's house and plug something in. So it was pretty crazy. I do miss. We're still not quite back at the days where you can have like an ensemble cast in the booth. and I look forward to getting there. But yeah, it was still fun to record everyone. I did get to meet Kate Micucci. She had to come in for some reason to one of the studios. I can't remember why. So
Oh, well, it's good
still a
to say
cool
that
experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as well, that kind of just re-emphasizes, like you say, how quickly things had to be done to say it came out when it did and that it was being recorded at the early stages of COVID and everything. It really was a quick turnaround on every element for you, really. And I know, like you said, you did get to meet with Kate. Do you have kind of a particular favorite memory from working on that movie at all?
Yeah, the records were fun. With Sword in the Scoob, we ended up that one was much more locked in than Happy Halloween. It actually started before Happy Halloween, like well before, long before my involvement. I think there were like 2 or 3 full iterations of it before I got there. So I did sort of a full rewrite on that, but we didn't have enough time or money to do what I wanted to do. So we had to keep like huge chunks of the original, and one of those was Nick Frost's performance. So I didn't think I was going to end up seeing him, but we finally got permission to add some new lines for him. So that was cool.
Wow, that actually is
Fun
that
record.
is awesome. Definitely from like a UK perspective here, like that's awesome.
Yeah, so in terms of your work on Sword and the Scoob, what exactly did that entail? Did you have a lot to do, or?
Basically, they were just sort of like, we're stuck with this thing and we're not quite sure how to finish it. So I watched it, and that's when I did the rewrites, and I tried to keep, because they did have so much production art, I tried to keep the locations solid, and I just ended up rewriting the characters and dialogue and kind of hoping to streamline the whole thing and make it kind of more British. I feel like when you do these things, you sort of only get like one shot at like the Great Britain Scooby or the whatever it is, the Frankenstein Scooby, and you just want to get like the most Frankenstein you can out of that. So that's one of the things I did end up doing, was I did do a Britification pass, and then I did kind of a comedy pass and a logic pass, and that was kind of the extent of my rewrites. We did eventually get permission to add some extra scenes and smooth some things over, and it was actually very, very long. I forgot about that, but it was about an hour and 45 minutes long when I got there. So it was really just hacking out these huge chunks and sewing it back together. So yeah, to sew some of that back together, we added a couple little sequences.
Yeah, well, it's really cool to hear about the Britification, because obviously we're all British Scooby fans, so I think we definitely all appreciated that. But speaking on another Scooby project, it was said on Tumblr that you decided not to work on the Courage the Cowardly Dog crossover because John Dilworth wouldn't be involved. Do you know if it was because he was approached but declined, or was he not approached at all?
As far as I know, he was approached and declined, and they asked me if I wanted to work on it, and I said no, because I wanted to respect his wishes, but also because I had wrote up the idea of doing a Billy and Mandy Scooby Doo, and the idea was that it would look too weird, so they said no, and I was like, well, Courage is also going to look weird. So I felt like if they were going to do the spooky Cartoon Network comedy crossover, I'd rather wait for the Billy and Mandy on that one.
Well, that like answers my next question. Definitely a big crossover that fans would love to see would be a Billy and Mandy and Scooby Doo crossover. But would you definitely be interested in writing for that one, producing?
Yeah, I mean, I love all those characters, so I think doing a full-on crossover would be interesting. I have no idea right now where that would go, but it'd be fun.
That certainly would.
Well, you never know for the future, but anyway, speaking about the future, are you working on any upcoming projects that you can talk about, please?
Sadly, nothing I can really talk about. This year has been weird for these last couple of years have been weird for animation in general. So there's not a lot of stuff getting made, but I'm still pitching shows. So that's what I've been working on, is just a group of like 4 or 5 different pitch Bibles. And I don't know what's going to happen with those, but it doesn't seem like anybody out here is in danger of making any cartoons anytime soon. So I may just take one of those and make something myself. So stay tuned, but nothing right now.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to keeping up with your career and the future of it, and indeed what else pops up. Is there a particular place where people watching can check out what's next for you?
I put stuff up on Instagram fairly regularly, and I've got a Tumblr if anybody still uses that. I don't really enjoy the social medias so much, so I don't do too much, but I'm there.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. I will make sure to use all of those links and put them in the description down below so people can go and follow them, as well as everyone else's social media links as well. But that does conclude all of the questions that we have today. I suppose in spirit, in light of this being one of our Halloween specials that we're going to be putting out in October, I will ask if you have 3 Halloween or horror-based movies that you recommend people watch during the season. What would they be? Or even just 3 movies that you like to watch around October?
That's a good question. Shoot, there's Trick or Treat, Trick R Treat. It's a little lowercase r. That's it's pretty old now, but it's sort of a fun Halloween themed anthology movie. I feel like I just saw something good. What was it? I'm still kind of into Annihilation, which I know is barely a horror movie and not really a Halloween movie, but I'll recommend that too. I should have done more research.
Whenever we
you
get
know what?
asked
From
stuff like this.
Stoker's Dracula. Stoker's Dracula,
Oh,
Halloween. There we go.
Yeah.
that's a nice classic to wrap up that recommendation list on. Definitely looking forward to catching up on all of them. And indeed, in the comment section down below, we'll definitely be looking for people that have checked those out and see what they think of it. But yeah, that, like I say, that does conclude the questions we had for you. Thank you so much for the time you've taken to speak to us today and for talking about things, both Billy and Mandy and also Scooby Doo, like 2 absolute classics. So thank you so much for that.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
No
See you next
problem.
time.
And for people watching this, thank you so much for watching. If you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.